if I'm running a business, right, and let's say I'm hiring an expert in marketing, I am not telling Monster and Indeed and public that the reason I'm hiring it is because we lost 40% of our business because it
Right.
was based on events and the pandemic happened, right? So
Yeah.
I'm going to make up some gobbledygook, right? But the problem on the candidate side is that if you go in there saying, okay, that's what the truth is, I'm going to align to that, that's what I'm going to talk about, right? If you don't get to what is really going on in the first interview, you failed. There's
Yeah.
no way back from that. Okay. There's no leverage you have. So assume that first and foremost, assume every job posting is completely lying to you, and none of that is the truth. So you don't have to worry about aligning to it. Again, having a process that overrides it will give you the best way to stand out and get that traction regardless. The other thing though here, in terms of what we're talking about, traditional hiring has become so expensive, and it's become the ROI has become so low. All these ATS systems and all of this has not the promise of that, which was supposed to be better hires who hang around longer and ideally perform better, has been a complete failure. So that hasn't worked. And so what we're seeing is that quietly companies across the board are shoveling money not into more recruiting, more hiring, but they're actually shoveling it into incentives, bonus programs for their existing talent workforce. They're saying, hey, look, we want to institute programs. We want to put in rewards. We want you to actually take your own networking more seriously. And we want to deploy you and reward you where possible for bringing in the right people. I am Anish Majumdar. I'm a career coach and expert in the hidden job market. I grew up in a very conservative Indian household. It was me, my younger brother, and my parents, and things were very formal. So the strange thing was, in our dinner table, we never developed the ability to sort of confide, to sort of have that interchange. And so what happened was, for a lot of us, and for myself and my brother as well, we kind of learned that, hey, you know what? When it came to the big challenges in our lives, we actually have to deal with it entirely on our own. And what we share with our parents are the highlights, And so I know in some ways, a very different kind of quality than the one I enjoy with my kids and my wife today, But I do think that at the heart of that, sometimes the most formative things can actually be exactly the opposite of what you want. And sometimes you need to experience that other side in order to actually say, hey, you know what, this is important to me. And certainly one thing that those awkward as heck dinners taught me was, no matter who we are, we have to be able to communicate with each other, and we are creatures that do our best when we're sort of weaving a tapestry in and amongst ourselves. And no matter how brilliant you are, how talented, how gifted you are not going to be able to do this. You're not going to be able to get to the goal that you're after on your own. For sure, it's not happening. And so that's probably the number one thing I took away from those early days.
Yeah, interesting. And would you say that you had any entrepreneurial influences early on, or is this something that you jumped into entrepreneurialism sort of on your own? What would you say there?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, like many of the kind of entrepreneurs and business owners and CEOs I've gotten a chance to know through my work, it wasn't originally part of the game plan. For me, I discovered acting, and in my 20s, I was a film and TV actor, theater actor, and that was like the first aha moment I had. Honestly, I was, believe it or not, I'm a deeply introverted person, and getting up on stage was the first time where all of these, my mom was schizophrenic. We had all this stuff that we were not telling anyone. We were just trying to be something we were not. Through the lens of acting was the first time where I was like, hey, wait a minute, there could be a value in all of this, right? That there's this is energy that I can put towards it. So that set me off on a path. Certainly the actor's path is probably the worst you can imagine in terms of getting ahead. It is the most brutal version of a job interview ever, because you get rejected 98% of the time, no matter how good you are. You do the job. You're treated well if you're lucky, but then you're right back to where you were. The acting career makes it almost impossible to strategically leverage the jobs that you've had. You're always back on square one. You're always having to reprove. So that's where I was at in my 20s. as I was doing that, I was building a career as a journalist and a writer. My mom, before she took sick, was an English teacher, so she had kind of given me a leg up there. And as I started freelancing, as I started writing, that became a larger and larger part of my life. And through all of this, right, as a sideline, I started working with job seekers, people who are trying to better their professional lives, using my writing and marketing capabilities to help them. And I have to tell you, it was the first time in my life where, I started getting to know these people. I remember specifically this guy, Arthur, 52 years old, jumps on the phone with me, ostensibly needs help with his resume. And what changed it all for me was realizing I'm hearing this guy tell his story. And he spent 20 plus years working at an architectural firm in Manhattan. He thought he had been doing great work, had won awards for his work and all of this. He's like, Anish, I feel like a fool. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, I'm in my 50s right now. I was banking on the promises that they had told me. All of that is gone. I didn't sock anything away in terms of my own equity, my own thing. I thought my work would speak for itself. Now I'm out here. I'm supposed to like compete with people who are 20 years younger than me, 30 years younger than me. And frankly, I just feel like a failure. I feel like I failed. And maybe it was because when I heard that, it was, my journey had forced me to generate my own opportunities my whole life. But there was something in me where I said, there's got to be something else here. There's got to be, there's something fundamentally wrong here, that someone is looking at their journey that way and it has their heart ripped out of them in that way. But B, I knew by that point that there's more than one way to skin a cat. And I knew people tell you, oh, you can network your way to a job, but you can't make that a strategy. You can't actually run with that. And so it started, mainly out of defiance. I was like, look, I'm going to see, because I don't suffer from those limitations. So I went out there. It took me the better part of 6 years, cost my family almost everything that we had. We were maybe 6 months away from bankruptcy when the final pieces of this came together. But I learned with every business expert I could, every networking expert I could, to put together an end-to-end solution so that, for example, someone like you who has, I think you would agree with me, your journey is atypical to the max. Your journey is singular to that. The worst mistake you could do right now is to go out there, look at some job postings or look at some people on LinkedIn and try to like somehow reverse engineer yourself to be that. No one's ever going to buy that. And that is exactly the way to take your strengths and make them a vulnerability. So once I started realizing, wait a minute, there's an end-to-end here where you can, if you want, completely skip the job postings. You can skip trying to prove or have you convince these low-level gatekeepers. And instead, we can have you actually building relationships with people who are more like you, i.e. the top of the top, people who've actually leveraged it. We'll have you talking to them as an expert, and we'll have you taking a more entrepreneurial approach, if you will, towards this outcome. I think every one of us could benefit from looking at our future, not through the lens of perfect job, perfect company. None of that makes sense. It never did, but it especially is now. Think of it this way. Success is a universe of opportunities that you are able to generate relatively easily anywhere in the world, exactly the way that you want it to. And you can say no when you want, you can say yes when you want, you can structure it however you want. And there is zero negative price to be paid for the decisions that you need to make. Whether it's a mom I'm working with who wants to actually start a family, how stupid is it that someone like that gets penalized? Or someone who says, hey, you know what, I'm sick of IT. I want to actually see what I can do to make that happen. This all changes once the commitment says, hey, you know what, I'm not playing that game. I have got to start playing this in a way that fundamentally serves me and moves towards an outcome I'm after. So long answer, I know, but it has been, 12 years into it, it has been such an amazing journey. 2,000 people shifted in this way of all different personality types, and I can tell you, we all can do this. We all can diversify in this way. I hope that makes sense.
I love it. I love it, and I love different. And like you said, this is kind of like the way that I think. Like I don't necessarily go and look at things the same way that other people do. And it seems like you have found this path to be able to open up this other angle that most people might not necessarily see. And I want to dive into that. But first, I just want to go back You said that you were an actor at one point, and I'm curious if you have ever taken any improv classes by chance.
Yes, yes, yes. One of the most fun I've probably ever had in school,
Mhm.
has been that. And for those of you listening who are like familiar with improv, one of the cardinal rules, right, is when you're up there on the stage, you may not know what the answer is, you may not
Yeah.
know what to do, right? But don't say no, right? The answer is to run with what you have, to make grist out of what you have. And I think
Mhm.
that attitude and that perspective, this kind of agile way of sort of looking at what you're doing there, that's a really good like mind state to have when you're talking
Mhm.
about moving ahead. Like
Yeah.
we sometimes think, oh, okay, I get this big meeting, this opportunity, I got to prepare to say the right things, and then I sort of mentally almost check out and I
Exactly.
wait to sort of be asked. Right, if you bring a little bit of that, shall we say, improvisational attitude to it, to say, hey, you know what, let's see, I've got 30 minutes with Matt. Instead of trying to pitch him or present him, let's actually see if we can start talking about what he's actually experiencing, and let me see if I can actually start helping him right now. Let me see what we can do.
Yeah. Yeah.
That attitude will get you usually so much further,
I
so much
I
further.
completely agree.
Yeah,
Completely agree. Yeah, I think that improv is like an overlooked skill. Like, not many
yeah,
people I don't it doesn't even matter what industry you're in. I think that it's something that, it's communication, it's getting out of your own head, like what you're saying, like stop trying to plan everything all out and just let things happen. And
yes,
and I mean, that's basically what improv is all about. And being
yes.
able to use that and apply that in all areas of life. It doesn't matter if you're sitting next to somebody, in a taxi, or, in a plane, or, you are pitching somebody. Like those communication capabilities and skills can come in handy, throughout life. Right.
Oh my,
So
oh my gosh. I mean, having been on the other side of the hiring table and listened to what employers will also, what their attitudes and thoughts have been after the fact, a lot of times, the reason, really promising people will get passed over, especially late stage. This is crazy, but it's a reality. They didn't do anything wrong, but the problem was, at least one person in that room got a sense that says, hey, you know what, Matt is so qualified and all of this, but he kind of like told us everything that we needed to hear, didn't we? And the
mhm.
truth is, if we give him this job right now, we've only told him 30 to 40% of what's going on here. He's going to be hitting the storm
Mhm.
and the fact is, he's going to very quickly run into zones where we're none of us are going to have an answer. We're going into absolutely new territory. And if I'm going into battle like that, whether it's my CTO, my CMO, whoever it is, I need to know that he's going to have the backbone to actually call me out on stuff. I know for a fact that I don't have all the answers here. So
Yeah.
it concerns me that I had 3 or 4 hours of FaceTime with Matt, and every single assertion I made was backed up, was validated as though it were the right thing to do. Call it
Right.
out. If
Yeah.
you know better, right, for what you do. If you're hearing BS, there's no better way to express value to be like, hold on a second, back up,
Yeah. Look at
tell
it this way.
walk
Yeah.
walk me through this.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
we feel like we feel somehow that we don't have the right to activate our own intuition, again, using this sort of improv analogy, like the way that you are when you're at work, and all of these instincts, right, they have a place, whether we talk about it in terms of hiring or networking or whatever. That's the magic. Don't sit on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, when you're
Completely,
looking at it.
completely agree. So let's walk down the path of,
Yes.
what someone, you mentioned that the 54-year-old who, hadn't really put anything away. Is that a common situation? Would you say that a lot of people, are in? So that's kind of setting up, this is what today is like. What does tomorrow look like after, they've gone through and worked with you, right?
Yeah, it's a the underpinnings of what we teach. I firmly believe this, and I've seen people who, I'd love to have had a chance to work with them, but we've had plenty of people who have learned what we're talking about here, run with it, and used it. So this stuff can help anyone. Yes, Arthur's situation is not uncommon. I think, though, the way to almost think about this is, what got him stuck, let's say I'm working with someone, Mark, right now. Uh, he's brilliant C-suite level executive. Ageism is the thing that he feels like has been marginalizing him.
Mm-hmm.
I work with people who are like, look, Anish, the truth is I'm a woman in oil and gas. I'm never going to get a fair shake. All of that might be true, okay? And the truth is, I'm a 6'1" brown guy. There's probably been tons of times I've been marginalized silently for that. That the point is not to somehow win over everyone. You never will. The point is actually to get bigger than the one or two people who are going to do that. And the way that you're going to do about this is to think about what actually fosters a hire. The job posting, right? When you see something like that, that's actually a very, very old pain that's been going on at that company. They've tried to solve it in all likelihood a whole bunch of different ways. They tried to solve it internally. They moved out to their whole staff. They said, who do you know? Who can you move in? All of these people had a different go of it in terms of doing it. They may have even hired people at that rate. It didn't work. And at every stage, they're tacking new things on as they're pushing the role out towards other people further away from the real line of command. More qualifications, more things that they didn't even want before, they're adding in there because the thing is happening. Okay, so if the idea is all offers are based on pain that's there, then the first thing that we need to realize is that the job postings and what you're seeing there, that's just some companies that are showing you some amount of pain. But when we're looking at an industry or we're looking at companies, the full number of companies right now that are experiencing pain that you can then attach yourself to and an offer and structure an offer around, full-time, part-time consulting, is infinitely higher. The estimates are 8 to 10 times higher than whatever you might see at a glance, right? So the idea first and foremost is, how do I not chase more job postings or find more here, but say, okay, I got these end stage ones here, fine, okay. How, though, can I start diversifying and start talking to people at these companies so I can start identifying the pain earlier? Because the earlier you identify the pain, the less competition there has, and the earlier it's happening, the easier it is for me to actually hire you and get you set up without going through all of that. The more leverage you have, I right now running this company, I've got 5 or 6 priorities right now. I was just having a meeting with my team. I'll tell you, out of those 5 or 6, one's a marketing one, one's an operational one. If I'm building a relationship with someone, if they take time to set up a call with me, I'll probably say yes, because you know what? I can probably ask them a couple of questions that are pertinent. Yeah. If they're able to identify what is really going on and then say, hey, Anish, here's the deal. You have a couple of ways that you guys can address this. Here's what I found works. Here's what I think is the right way to do it, because this is going to take it beyond just solving problems and get you into a zone where what you wanted to do with this company, where you wanted to go, this is in alignment. This is what I can do. This is what we should do in terms of what's there. If you start doing that, even in the most humble way, like spend 20 minutes a week at the beginning, you know what I mean? Just diversifying, just building the relationship first, getting acclimated to branding yourself in that, in a separate way, which we can talk about. That will really, really shift it. So the business of generating offers and abundance for you is really your business of identifying relevant pain. That's really what it is. So if you say, okay, that's where I can get it, then that means the offers can come anywhere. The second thing would be, not to go too far ahead of ourselves, how do I change my first impression so that automatically those people I need to be building a relationship with don't automatically discount me as a job seeker, right? And so the other part, and I'll see this all the time, is that in people's brands and stuff like that, they'll either, they're doing what's called advanced skill trading. So they're like, look, experience-wise, I deserve to be a CTO of a company. I've got all this tech experience. Well, when I got into the industry, I did a bunch of assessments and tests. So why don't I get a 6-page resume and just fill out every technical thing I want? But the truth is, for a CTO role, that might work for like an IT manager of some, mid-grade company. But if we're talking about a Fortune 50 CEO, I could develop a 1-page resume for them that has not one technical thing mentioned there, because we're not hiring you for tech capabilities at that point. We're hiring you to be a strategic partner to this business. But that way of thinking is something anyone can use out there. Instead of saying, look, how many skills can I throw out there, or how can I reverse engineer myself to sort of fit into their box? Say, hey, what's Matt Shield's magic process for moving a company forward as only he could? What can you do based on your journey that no one else can? Start branding yourself that way. LinkedIn, resume, what you decide to talk about in the interview and the face-to-face. All of a sudden now, instead of people feeling defensive because, look, you've never been nothing but an employee, so why are you talking to me? You know, that's the truth of it. Now you have something. Now there's something you can engage with. There's something you can fight for. There's something that I can say, Matt, what you guys are doing is absolutely wrong in this organization. It is, you should burn that strategy to the ground. And I'm telling you this, and you know I'm not on your payroll. I'm telling you this as an expert. So do it. You know what I mean? So you have something there. Right. And most people, because they don't have something to talk about, because they don't have a larger purpose than just I want a job or I want to work for Meta or whatever, that's where they get blocked. Right. If you have a process, this whole thing opens up. And if you have a process, you can attack the first interview or the first relationship, not from a lens of what am I going to say? But here's the thing, what can I ask? Spend 99% of your time coming up with the right questions, coming up with questions that are meant to make you respected, to make you open up, and to get us kind of doing what we call the mirror interchange. You know, you show me what's going on here confidentially. I'm showing you what's going on here. I'm doing my best to help. I don't know if there's an offer there, but I know that if I help you in the right way, I'm going to have this relationship. And I know that for the right people, right, there's going to for some of the relationships I build, the kind of pain we identify here is going to be so severe that you're not going to accept anything other than me personally getting involved to solve it and take it out of your life. That's the game of diversification in a nutshell, you know, and everyone can do it. Everyone can talk. You can talk to a CEO today, and you couldn't do that 20, 30 years ago. But today, the pain is overriding everything. It's killing the hierarchies. It's killing recruiters and their little networking games. It's destroying all of that and eating it up. And in exchange for that, there is this mad hunger and opportunity for individuals who can actually say, yup, we do this now. Nope, you're not going to do this now. Let's talk about this. Don't ask me about what happened 5 years ago. Okay. I want to know what you guys have been doing to manage the challenge churn for the last 6 months that I noticed you haven't been talking about. That's what I want to know about, right? That's my right as an expert, is to hold your feet to the fire for what I do. And I want everyone out here listening to do the same. When you're interviewing with a company, because of your questions, they should know you have extremely high exacting standards of what makes for a company that's going to work, what's not. When they're talking to you, it should absolutely never be, hey, I've got an opportunity. Are you interested? Yes, I am. It should be interesting. Let's talk. Let's see what these details. Never, ever, ever. No preemptive yeses, no preemptive sending a resume out there without knowing what you're going to do. All of that it has to go. I'm getting ahead of myself, but it's true. You know, like we say, I want to be a leader, but none of my behaviors and actions say that I'm a leader, right? So how am I going to take you seriously? I can even give you the salary and I can bring you on board. But if you've never challenged me, if I don't see what that real dynamic is, I'm never going to stop micromanaging you. And I'm never, ever going to stop thinking about the fact that when this business changes, dude, you're out. You're like, we got you. You solved the problem. So why do I need to keep you around for year 2 or year 3? You know, like why? I mean, if it didn't start with that, right? If there wasn't some recognition that everything Matt does is towards a bigger purpose, then you have no bigger purpose, right? You're just a problem solver, right? And so you have no leverage in the marketplace, right? So, just something to think about, you know, when you're looking at the road out there.
So I don't know if this is just, again, I haven't, you know, looked for a job in a long time, but I find I find this incredibly fascinating that you've kind of taken the I guess the business approach, the business pitch, if you will, where, you know, everyone's saying, you know, find the problem, solve the problem, right? And you're doing the exact same thing, you know, sort of from the other side, from the employee, you know, side, where, you know, you're coming in and more or less, again, pitching that problem. And I've never even heard of that or considered that before, you know, from an employee standpoint. And I was kind of flipping this around again, from an employer standpoint. Is there something that we can be doing better? You know, again, you put together these wish lists. You know, we want you to have all of these different qualifications. It would be nice if you had this type of experience, rather than having those high level conversations. um, there's a line here, obviously, where you might not necessarily want to display what your challenges are per se, but maybe being a little bit more, diving a little bit deeper into that, and kind of scratching that surface a little bit more in those public advertisements, so that people can say, okay, yeah, I've solved that for other companies, or I've done that before.
You said it exactly right, and you hit the elephant in the room in some sense about why that approach fundamentally is a lot more flawed than I think gets thing, which is the truth. Like, if I'm running a business, right, and let's say I'm hiring an expert in marketing, I am not telling Monster and Indeed and public that the reason I'm hiring it is because we lost 40% of our business because
Right.
it was based on events and the pandemic happened, right? So
Yeah.
I'm going to make up some gobbledygook, right? But the problem on the candidate side is that if you go in there saying, okay, that's what the truth is, I'm going to align to that, that's what I'm going to talk about, right? If you don't get to what is really going on in the first interview, you failed. There's no way back from that. Okay. There's no leverage you have. So assume that, first and foremost, assume every job posting is completely lying to you, and none of that is the truth. So you don't have to worry about aligning to it. Again, having a process that overrides it will give you the best way to stand out and get that traction regardless. The other thing, though, here, in terms of what we're talking about, traditional hiring has become so expensive, and it's become the ROI has become so low. All these ATS systems and all of this has not the promise of that, which was supposed to be better hires who hang around longer and ideally perform better, has been a complete failure. So that hasn't worked. And so what we're seeing is that quietly companies across the board are shoveling money not into more recruiting, more hiring, but they're actually shoveling it into incentives, bonus programs for their existing talent workforce. They're saying, hey, look, we want to institute programs. We want to put in rewards. We want you to actually take your own networking more seriously. And we want to deploy you and reward you where possible for bringing in the right people. So I will tell you, the people that I work with, personally, for us, our solution at this point even includes, we have a proprietary LinkedIn automation software, which basically takes care of all the outreach, all the networking and everything for you. But you don't have to go that far if you're not there. But the way that you want to think about this is, if you're talking to the right people and they respect who you are, and there's a professional basis for the call that you are able to hold. In other words, that the reason I'm talking to you, I'm taking 30 minutes out of my day, out of a very full client calendar, because I see value in your pathway. I think that there are parallels, and I think that there would be value there. There's no, I could not care less about your family or your loved ones right now. That's not why I'm taking time away from mine. There's a very clear offer-oriented reason. Now, in my messaging to you, in my brand, everything is going to be aligned towards that offer, and it's going to be aligned towards maintaining that. My saying is, if I have to pitch anything to you, I have done something wrong in terms of the first impression and how I've set this up. There's no pitching. And if you think that if you're going to come and take time out of my calendar and you're going to say something like, what have you been up to? Or what have you, that's more of a marker to me that we're going to be wrapping this call up in the next 3 minutes. You know what I mean? It's not a marker of you and what you're going to get. It's a marker that you didn't do the right research here. So what I want to do here for everyone that I speak with and everyone that I work with, right, is I want to hit those zones of authority, credibility, and unique value, so that as much as possible, we're jumping in there. Now, beyond that, I would say for everyone listening, if you're talking about what you do, I know this is going to sound simplistic, but it's one of the easiest ways we can protect our interests. Take it seriously. In other words, I'm seeing people in interviews saying, "Oh, Matt, it's great. You got a little podcast off the ground, did a little bit of that. That's cool." Excuse me, right? That's your moment where for not just what you're doing here, but in terms of just the mental state here. Don't allow yourself to get minimized like that. I'm not saying be combative, but I'm saying, well, it's a little bit more than that, right? This is what we were able to build from scratch. This is what the plan was. These are the amazing voices we brought in. Here's the incredible impact that we made happen here. It is very, very far away from just a sideline that went well. I see people, all the time. They're letting their capabilities get minimized. Oh, you're a marketer, right? So, well, we've been talking with marketing experts. Da, 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 da. Your answer is not to play into that and somehow pitch your way out. You're never going to pitch them in that way. Your answer in that moment is to ask yourself. There's a formula that we use all the time: acknowledge, isolate, pivot. Right? So you're saying, hey, I'm a marketer. I want this X skills. We'd really like to see this. Okay, I acknowledge what's going on here. Isolate. Let's talk about why you want this, right? Let's talk about what's driving this need here, right? It looks to me like X is going on. Now I'm going to pivot, right? So here's a moment here that I think perfectly illustrates that. Yes, it has nothing to do with the number of people you're looking to lead. I'm talking about the principle of how to lead these people in this moment, right? Does that make sense to you? Because I don't want to just be pitching meta here, okay? Does this make sense? What can you tell me about what is actually going on? Because quite frankly, I don't believe a single thing in this posting.
Yeah.
Not one.
Yeah. That's
going to prove your credibility infinitely better than you sitting there pitching and presenting like an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Yep.
This is about courage and standing up, and above all, being willing to be like, look, every single interview is a no. Until the offer is there, it is a no. I don't care how many interviews you have or what promises they tell you, it is 100% a no. So your question is, when you go into that call, when you go to that interview, make it worthwhile for yourself. Don't leave with that little feel of guilt and shame that happens when we give up ourselves. Yep.
Yeah.
It's time to stand up and say, okay, if I know it's going to be a no with exploring this relationship with Matt, fine. How can I make this valuable? I can build this relationship so that this continues growing regardless of the role. I can change. There's all these things, right? Make it about personal criteria that you can control and will help you regardless of whether or not the outcome comes into play. And you'll behaviorally start shifting yourself into a way where more authority will stay in your zone and you'll be able to call it out. But calling out, take it from an introvert, okay? Yeah. Calling out is one of the best things that you can do. And it's one of the most productive things because that's what we want from a hire. That's what we want. We want someone who's going to call it out. The reason I married my wife, among the major reasons, is because, here's someone who, like, in 30 seconds will raise the eyebrow being like, I don't buy that. Or why did you get all shady there all of a sudden? What's going on there? You know what I mean? It shifted everything, and it made me look at myself. I'm like, yeah, you know what? I guess I did do that. You know what I mean? Like, I guess I am kind of, that's the magic of, I think, trusting individuals over putting your faith into a dream company. Not to say that you shouldn't, but individuals really, they're the ones who changed my life, like it was trusting people like you and saying, hey, look, no strings, I'm going to do my best to help you no matter where it goes. That's the decision that really, really, really shifted everything for me. And it brought so much hope and light back into everything, because I realized that there's so much, not just business, but so many amazing people out there and so many people worth partnering with and doing your best. And it made the haters and the marginalizers, you get bigger than it, because you realize, like, it's all right. Like, it's okay if like 1 out of 1,000, 1 out of 500 decides not to get you, man. Yeah. You are never going to run out of opportunities. They're waiting for you right now.
And that's, and I'm so glad that you went down that path of identifying, kind of your own mindset, in this path, right? Like, I think a lot of people get caught up in the, I got to impress this person, who's right in front of me right now. And just getting past that and recognizing who you actually are, who what you can actually bring to the table. Incredibly, incredibly powerful. You mentioned before I can't remember the acronym that you use, but the identify, pivot, and
the accept, acknowledge, isolate, pivot. Yes.
So you're doing that when you come into the meeting. Do you have any strategies on identifying? Like you said, like, I think this is what's going on, right? But if the company is hiding all of this, any thoughts on how to dive in and get more information on what might actually be going on?
Yes. So what we do when we work with people is, because a lot of the people we're working with, they're time compressed, but they still need to scale up the relationship building, et cetera. So if you're for example, let's say your next week has like 6 or 7 high level conversations, relationships. You can't start from scratch for each and every one of these. So what we will do is we'll help our clients build what's called a question bank, which is essentially a repeatable tool that you would use for all of this. But the principle, right? The principle of this is to say, okay, where would the rubber, in a simple, plain English way, where does the rubber meet the road for my offer, right? So if I say like, look, I help people, generate offers on demand, I don't want to have a conversation about that. That's salesy. I'm going to get into that zone. But the truth is, there are concerns about if you're out there and you're feeling dissatisfied for whatever reason, you've been trying to solve this, there's going to be an impact on your finances. There's going to be an impact on your relationships with your family and the dreams that you have for them. There's going to be an impact on your self-esteem, self-belief. There's going to be an impact in terms of the hours that you're spending per week, probably away from your work trying to solve this in terms of these actions. There's going to be all of these things. And the same thing is true regardless of what industry path you're in. If I'm in technology, right? What I don't want to be focused on talking to potential bosses who have the same background of me. I want to be thinking about influencing, building relationships with people who are affected by the pain of what I do at the highest level, but not necessarily with my background, right? So IT, growth, transformation, riding this digital wave, changing this company the only way that we can. Who's affected by that? Obviously, the CEO is, operations are, the chief strategy officer would be, the chief people officer would be. These are all people that I can talk to that would be valuable for me to talk to. And if my questions were geared not towards artificially kind of gotcha, I found the pain, but if you think of it like, when you go to a doctor, they don't do that either. They do it in a very, very wonderful way, in a gentle way. They lead you through this assessment. But the magic of an assessment is that you are, all the authority that you want, all the trust that you want is actually being fostered through the process of the questions this person is asking and the clarity that you're getting in real time. So if I say, look, these are some questions I could ask about this person's current role, about how they're dealing with their team, about their past journey, and these are questions that it gets me in the universe of talking about those areas that I deal with all the time. That would allow you to start having that knowledge interchange. You'd start, if you're focusing on an industry, this is the best way to get real insider information to really understand what's going on. I can start trading notes on what's going on. And once we're here, it is easy to go deeper from a place of like, hey, could we talk a little bit about this? And look, if it's too uncomfortable, I get it. But I'm a nerd about this. I want to see people win at this. And I really do. Like, stand for a mission that you would be happy if someone you spoke with or a company you spoke with, if they benefited from it, even if they didn't pay you, would you still be happy? Would you still be like, we got one, man, we got one. Okay. That's a sign. Okay. That's a sign that you're on a pathway of thinking about yourself that's really, really, really going to work there. But it's that art, of asking those questions in a first date. We always say, what am I going to say? But the counterintuitive thing is, if you spend most of that time, asking thoughtful questions, really learning and doing that, I promise you, you walk out of there, your date is going to be Matt. Matt was one of the one of the smartest, most insightful people I have ever spoken with, and the same thing is true here. Think about where your offer, where what you do meets the ground level, and start having conversations in a friendly way. And don't be afraid to openly say, hey, look, it's not my job to bamboozle you for a role, but it is definitely my job to see if I can help. And I am personally invested in building this relationship because I think it would be helpful. That did 80% of the heavy lifting before I was a coach or before ever there was a program or anything like that. The simple ability to be like, Matt, how did you do this? Like, how did this journey come about? Like being a fan, instead of trying to impress, because I really was a fan, It's these things that I know that they're simple, but they can really, really, really make a difference. Don't worry about impressing people. Like, don't worry about trying to, say the right thing to them. Focus on hearing them, focusing on being in there and focusing on learning from them, and you'll get the information. You can always follow up with someone after the fact. You know what I'm saying? But it's that beginning part. If they get that sense of, okay, I can trust you, that's it. That's the magic click that makes you go, man, if there was competition, it's gone, and you can do this in a traditional interview as well. We've had people shifted even in a 5-minute like conversation just by dint of what they asked in that 5 minutes. They're expecting some puffery. They ask a kind of a hard-hitting question that gets you thinking, okay, there's no one else after this, like who's got that understanding,
Yeah. And I think that this is, I know that we're talking about employees, but I mean, a lot of what you're talking about can be applicable, to other people going, and exploring, a business opportunity with the company,
Yes.
right? You're getting in and you're talking about those more hard hitting, impactful questions, which is going to make you stand out, above everybody else, right? Everybody else is walking in with their pitch decks and, we did this and we did that, and here's accolades, and, this is all of us. But, when you get in and you start, really identifying, some of those issues, it absolutely, like, I can actually picture like somebody standing in front of me right now and like, this would be great if they start talking about these types of things. And you're what you're doing for people is just absolutely incredible.
Oh, thanks,
I really,
man.
yeah, I really like, I love the approach and the mindset, and just coming at this from a completely different angle from what 99% of the people out there looking for work take things. So that's fantastic.
It's so cool to see the barriers breaking down a little bit in terms of, we're saying entrepreneurial, taking a more entrepreneurial approach to the work. But I think what's also cool is, I don't know if you recognize this, many of the entrepreneurs I've spoken to, they've also been like, man, at this point, I got to go on this path. But the cool thing is that permeability, right? It kind of goes both ways right now, where, you don't have to have a traditional background. You could be
Right.
you could have been an entrepreneur your whole life, and you can partner with a company right now, and you can do some really meaningful work, and they're never going to be more receptive than they are right now. That to me is very exciting, even though I get it. It can be a little scary to contemplate, but ultimately the net result is more opportunities for people like us, and that's always a really, really, really good thing, and something worth being optimistic about.
Yeah. And it all comes down to, the ask and taking that step moving forward,
Agreed.
having that courage to be able to, go whatever direction it is that you're looking, to be able to take that in.
100%, 100%, dude.
Yeah, that's very cool. I love it. Anish, if people want to learn more about you, your services, what would be the best way to reach out and get in touch?
Matt, I feel like this conversation went by like it was five.
I was thinking the exact same thing. I'm like, it's already, we're almost an hour in already.
It's a testament to how great you are at what you do, man. So there's one for those of you who'd like to learn the whole strategy. There's a special link I'd like to offer called it's called Tap the Hidden Job Market /ASAP. And if you go over there, it's a completely free class. It's about an hour long. We just wrapped it. It'll teach you the 5 major shifts that our clients are using. It'll give you examples through all of that so you can start implementing it if you're interested. And if you want to get in touch with me and my team, you'll have the ability to do that at the end of the class. HelloAnish.com is also a big HQ for us with a lot of career trainings and stuff like that. Again, focused on sort of doing this differently to get an outsized result. And LinkedIn, for those of you who are on LinkedIn, put in Anish, put in the word career. I'm over there. And again, I'm doing my best, me and my team, every day as we're looking at people out there in the trenches, making these moves and getting these outcomes. We're constantly trying to share things and give these little nuggets to members of our network out there on LinkedIn, just so you also know, like, hey man, you're not alone. Like the biggest illusion is thinking that you're doing all of this alone, but there's a whole world of people out there who want this, who are fighting for this, and who are willing and able to help you if you feel like you need it. So I hope that that's helpful.
Absolutely. I love it. Yeah. Like I said, I think that there's so many nuggets from today, so many things that can be applied to so many different areas of life. So again, maybe it's the early days of improv, but you have a great way of being able to, express these things in different capacities and in different lights. So kudos to you. That's really amazing. So
I'm thankful to be taking some time to chat with someone who clearly, your connection to what you do, I think is right there. It's clear. It's right there on the surface. And if there's one thing that I want for everyone that I work with also is that in your way, I want it to be as easy as you seem to make it.
Yeah.
That's what I want for, I want people to feel that way when it comes to their professional careers, that it's like, all right, man, like wherever we go, I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but
Yep.
I know that it's going to be a good part of this journey and a relevant part of my journey. And I'm excited to look at it,
Yeah. Love it. I love it. Anish, thank you for the time. This has
Thank
been
you, my man.
fantastic.